Hi, everyone. This is Amanda Bates, the founder of the Black Expat and host of the Global Chatter podcast. My guest this week is Anna Linde, who is a dance and movement therapist, as well as an intimacy coach in training. Anna's story begins in Brazil, where she was born and then adopted to a Swedish couple. As you can imagine, growing up as a brown child in a predominantly white Swedish community led to some struggles about identity as she was growing up. Much of our conversation focuses on her experiences growing up brown and Brazilian in a very white Swedish community. We also explore why she decided to seek out and meet her biological family in Brazil and the unanticipated discoveries she made along the way. And boy, did she make some discoveries. We also discuss her time currently living in Portugal and why she decided to world school her children for a year. This is a wonderful episode examining cross-cultural identity from several angles, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a review on your favorite platform. And if you really, really like it, share it with a friend. Welcome to the Global Chatter. All right. So welcome to the latest episode of the Global Chatter. I anticipate that this will be an exciting episode. I know I say that for every episode and my guests always laugh when I say that, but it's true because I think that one of the best things about this podcast are the different perspectives and the different backgrounds of the people who come on. And I know that having Anna on here is just going to contribute to the great legacy of guests that we've had here. So Anna, good day to you. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm fine. It feels good to be here.
And you know what? And it feels good to see you. And the thing is, we were joking offline about how I'm like this every episode. If one day I decide to do video, I need to look as awake and alive as the guests do because it's always earlier for me. And this is not bad because you are in Spain.
Yes.
But especially when I have guests who are in Asia and it's like 4 a.m. here and then it's 4 p.m. there. Everybody always looks very awake and alive and bright and you look great. So I'm happy that you're here. I don't know if you feel that way, but you're radiating it. So I'm ready. I'm excited. So as I've already said, you are in Spain. Where in Spain are you?
We are about an hour from Malaga in a small village called La Herradura, where it's basically an international world schooling community.
Really? Okay. So look, here's the thing. I hadn't actually really thought about that there were big communities around world schooling. And I know this is a different way than we normally enter, but can you explain for people who don't know what world schooling is?
Yeah, it's, because my kids, they are 12 and 9 and they have been going to like a traditional Swedish school all day long, all the time until last year or this fall, the last fall. No, wait. Yes, it's spring now to the last fall.
Okay.
And so we decided that we wanted to take a year and travel around. So they are studying in an American online school and we are traveling around. So they are doing their things on the computer and we are, both doing art and sports and other things like projects in the places where we are. And a world schooling, this is a way to world school because we want to learn in the places where we are. We want to learn about cultures, about language. We want to, like when we are road tripping, we are stopping in different places like Hamburg, Paris, and we just learn something and do something when we are there. So La Herradura is a kind of a community place where there's a lot of homeschoolers and it's a lot of world schoolers and there's also a lot of unschoolers that are hanging here. So it's a good mix of people.
Wow. And for the people who are listening, we had a guest on at the beginning of season 1 named Karen Ricks, who also world schools her son, her and her husband world school. And so if you want to hear more about it, I would encourage y'all to listen to that episode. But I'm curious, you guys are doing it and you've been doing it for about a year. Was it an adjustment? Because your kids were in traditional Swedish schools, and we will get into your background in a second, but was it an adjustment going from having them in a traditional school to having them in this kind of world school space?
Yeah, because suddenly I'm not only the mom, I'm also kind of the teacher that is supposed to actually make them do the things that I feel and the school feels is necessary for them to do. So we have been adjusting our routines a bit. They always want to sleep longer in the mornings, so we are up a bit late. But it's a very interesting journey to do because suddenly I have a lot of time to spend with my kids. And it's it's time, of course, but it's also more quality time. So I feel grateful for having this opportunity to do this much things together with them.
And that's such a cool perspective. And hearing other parents who world school, I mean, just you're in Europe, if nobody knows that at this point, but you're in Europe. And so you being able to say, oh, we stop in Hamburg or we're in Paris, I think that's a dream for a lot of people. I think that's a dream for a lot of adults. So I think it's super cool that, obviously the proximity, at least with Western Europe, there are all these cool historical places that I think you can get to.
Yeah.
And so with that, and you've already kind of laid a little bit of the context. So your family is Swedish, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you grew up in Sweden, but if I understand correctly, you were adopted. So tell me a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, I'm adopted from Brazil. So I came to Sweden when I was about maybe 6 or 7 weeks. So I was very young or very small. And I grew up with white parents in the, kind of fancy neighborhood, or not fancy, but like good standard neighborhood. I had the privilege to go to good schools. But I was also always the only Black kid, basically.
Mm-hmm. 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 Did your parents were you an only child, or did they have other children, and did they have biological children?
They only had me. So I'm a single only Black kid.
Oh my gosh. Very interesting. So I guess I asked this question. I mean, I've interviewed individuals who've been adopted before. Was there a particular reason why they looked towards Brazil, or it was just the opportunity was there?
I think it was a bit about the opportunity, because we are like 14 or 15 kids that are adopted from not only the same city, but like 2 cities close by in the same year to different Swedish families.
Wow.
So I think there were an opening with a good connection with this lawyer, because these adoptions were made in private, or like not through an organization, but a private matter. And I think Brazil is one of those countries where you have a good, positive image of kind of exotification, though, when I look at it from an adult perspective. But I think this was also contributing to why my parents chose Brazil.
So you were an only child. Your parents are white. You're in Sweden. And I imagine at the time you were growing up, I mean, Sweden does have some significant diversity, at least in this period right now that I'm seeing, probably a lot more than historically. But what was it like growing up for you as an adoptee in Sweden? And where in Sweden did you grow up? I didn't ask.
I grew up in Stockholm. In an area called Södermalm.
Gotcha.
And I think from the beginning, I didn't really had a lot of perspective on how I could look at myself in this situation. But the more older I got, I realized that there is something about being Swedish that I just don't reach. Like, I cannot live up to it no matter what I'm doing or how I'm doing. And I had an I had a incident, it's a better word, because I was driving back to Sweden like 1 week ago, and I got stopped at the border between Denmark and Sweden And I had to argue with them for like 30 minutes to actually let me in my own country. And I was so pissed for that. But there is something that is like connecting with the Swedish identity that I still don't feel 100% accepted in.
And what I'm curious is, your parents, did they talk to you about identity or race? Was it ever a conversation as you were growing up, or was it? And I can see this too. You're our child, and it is what it is.
Yeah, but I think they didn't really, because the Swedish people are like, they tried in a way to be colorblind as a way to manage or to be more inclusive or accepting. But when you're colorblind or when you have a colorblind approach, it also means that you actually don't see or have the courage to face racism or other type of abuse that you get into because you have a different skin color or a different ethnicity. So even when I came home and I told them about things that were happening or that people was treating me badly, they really didn't want to see that this was true just because of my skin color. And I think they acted like that because of love and because they really wanted me to be accepted. But from a grown-up perspective, I think there are kind of problematic with that attitude or with that way of handling these situations.
Did you, growing up then, I mean, you mentioned that there were other, individuals from Brazil who were adopted. Did you have a community of sorts of other black or brown, wherever it came from, or for you, were you really the only one in your immediate space?
I think there was like 2 in my closest area or closest space. But when you are adopted and you are trying to, adapt to the situation, or you're trying to be white, because everybody that looks at us are white. So you internalize a white way of looking at things, which gives you a very difficult situation when it comes to actually, developing your self-esteem or your way of looking at yourself with self-respect, or at your body or at your hair or your whatever parts of you. So the ones that I had not really close, but kind of close, we were not really identifying to each other because we had the same skin color, because we didn't really see it like that, because we were all internalizing a white look or a white gaze at everyone around us and also ourselves.
You said something and my mental antenna went up. I was like, hair. I'm trying to figure out your hair. So like, cause I can't see your hair, cause you got a beautiful hair wrap on. I'm thinking to myself, okay, you got a white mom, the hair, like, did she know what to do with your hair?
No, she had no idea. Like no idea. And that's, I mean, she tried when I was little. I have this, Afro puff hair, like tiny curls. And she was trying to do this, put them up like this or put in one. But she didn't have a clue what to do with it. So what she did is, when I got bigger, maybe 6, 7, something like that, she took me to a hairdresser, beautiful, fantastic woman. And she asked her to, what do you call it? To make it straight, like to straighten the hair.
Put a relaxer in it. Yeah. Put a perm in it.
Yeah. And it's so painful. Yes. It hurts so much. Wow.
It's like, it smells like a chemical reaction on your head. Yeah. And you can't, and here's the thing. Let me tell you about what happens when your mama does it in the kitchen when you have a black mom. They're supposed to put it on your hair, but the problem is that sometimes it ends up on your scalp, and that's when you can feel your scalp burning, which is very weird that we all know this, but you can smell. It's terrible.
Yes. So
Yeah.
terrible. So we did that like for many years, and it was painful
Right.
and weird. And
I mean,
like,
and full disclosure, I had perms for a long time. I haven't had one in a long time because my hair is natural. But yes, I understand. So I'm not downing you if you've ever had one, but yes.
Yeah, but yeah, and it was like if I felt or I realized, and it's the same now actually, that people in Sweden, maybe in general, are much more accepting when I have straight hair or braids than when I have afro or my natural hair. And I learned that by growing up in Sweden, that this is kind of the type of hair I need to have to melt in, or to be able to pass as more white or more Swedish or less immigrant or whatever words we want to use. But when I was like 14, I was a terrible teenager. I started to braid my hair instead, and I chose all these different colors, long and short, and I was totally crazy just because I needed to reclaim something. I just didn't really know what I needed to reclaim at that point.
You know, you're right. I have heard this, and it's been a conversation, I think, with Black women here. And it's true. I think when people have definitely highlighted that when their hair is straight, different reaction. When their hair is braided, different reaction. And I think it also depends how it's braided. Let's be honest, because I do think that I know people like micro braids, they like box braids or whatever. But I think when you get a little even more artistic and have more colors and it's a little bit more dramatic, then I think it's like, it's not as positive a reaction, I would say, for some people. But, it is interesting to see the shift in hair. I would even say in the US, they've said that the number of women who put relaxer in their hair has significantly dropped, right? And I think there is this general movement more towards your natural hair, your braided hair, like natural. It's like the hair that comes out of your head. Why am I changing it? Because you don't know what to, like, that's your problem. Like we did not choose our hair. It's like everyone has the hair that they have, right? And so it's very interesting to sort of hear that. And I always ask that question, especially with those with adopted parents. I'm like, how was the hair situation? And it's always the same thing. It's like, they have no idea. And I think now here's what I think is better now. I think that more non-Black moms, and particularly white moms that have adopted Black children, have gotten better about asking Black moms and Black women, how do we, or, Black families, how do we work with this hair? Because I know folks who have adopted children who are Black, and I think now it's just easier. And I think also with social media, because you can now go and look and say, oh yeah, here are the tools. So yeah, no, I'm forever like fascinated by hair. So with that being said, and about feeling Swedish, did you ever feel, and I know this is an interesting question because you grew up in Sweden, was there anything in you that felt like there was a Brazilian identity?
Yeah, because I always, end up in Sweden. We have a word that you have to be lagom. And it means that you cannot be too much and you cannot be too little. You have to be in between, and you should keep it like that. Like you should be not talking too loud, not take so much space. You should, be lagom. Just be lagom.
Very
and
anti-American.
I never lagom.
This is very anti-American. We're very loud and take up a lot of space. Anyway.
Yeah. And I have no idea on how to be lagom. I cannot be lagom because I don't have the capacity for that, or I don't. So in so many ways, I was thinking that when I grew up, or when I was a teenager and close to teenager, I had the feeling that it's something about me that is just never going to work here in this context. And at some points, I thought it was how I was looking, like my skin color, my hair, my clothes. And I tried to dress differently. I tried to change my hair. I was doing like a lot of things to just unwrap this thing or make it more clear. But the more older I got, I realized that it's my personality that is like this. And that's not really possible to change. And I don't want to change it because I really appreciate my sides and my traits and my, the energy I have or the balance I have in life. Which is, not that typically Swedish in how I am. It's just that I needed to go back to Brazil to actually try to figure out what is Brazilian then. What does it actually mean? And do I have this, inside me somewhere? And what is it
then? So I'm presuming then you had an opportunity to go to Brazil?
I did. I've been back a couple of times. The first time when I was 14, I think, I went with my parents. And we went with other friends as well. But we went to the hospital where I was born to see how it was. And when we got to this place, it's like a small city outside of Salvador, Ilhéus. When we got out from the taxi or the cab, the people, it was like 20 guys playing football and they just stopped. It got quiet and the ball was like bouncing off the field because they never saw white people before. And for me, it was the opposite. I was like, wow, so many black people. Like, wow, damn it, this is special.
And I can imagine that you guys presented a picture, right? Because you look like them, right?
I do.
And then your parents are these white Swedish folks. So like I think part of it is probably, them going, who is this person that looks like us? Who's with these group of very white people? Yeah. Not that there aren't, obviously if you go to Sao Paulo, and I've been to Brazil, Sao Paulo, Rio, whatever, they're white, they're, although it's, I think South America is very funny because there are people who clearly present as white, but the people who are from those countries, they know, they're not like, to me, they might be white, but they're like, no, they got a little bit of whatever. But I think that your parents probably look like white to them.
Yeah, they are like white.
Yeah, they were not Brazilian white to them.
Oh, and no.
And so white. They were white. And so, I could imagine everybody's going, who is this girl who looks like us?
Yes.
And then there are these people who don't look like her.
Yeah.
And they're here.
Yeah. So confusing. And Brazil is very racist. Like it's a lot of racial structures in Brazil. And I wasn't prepared for that because nobody told me. Because who will tell me? Why my white parents? No, of course not, because they are white. They don't see these structures. But it was so ugly when I was there. People were like spitting at me in the line on the restaurant because we only eat in these fancy places because this is how my parents travel. And I couldn't imagine that it would be that type of behaviors that I would, get in my face. So when I got back the first time, I was so disappointed and sad, and I felt so like misunderstood. And like, really, I traveled to this country where I'm supposed to feel at home or feel that I have roots, and I'm not even accepted here. Like, what happened? What did I do wrong? And how can I fix it? What can I do now?
And you were a teenager too, right? So that's intense. I'm not going to lie. I mean, and I imagine in your mind, before you got there's probably an idea of how you thought you would be received, and then the reality of how you were received.
Yeah, because I totally didn't think about that it would be different for me going there with my white parents. I totally didn't see that, I thought we are going on vacation to Spain or to whatever when we have been going. but we got treated so extremely differently. If I was alone with my friends doing something, hanging at the pool or eating lunch or walking at the beach, or when we were with our parents. And at one point we just told our parents, like, leave us alone. Don't walk next to us. Like, we cannot handle this. Just go. You know, we will come later, but just go. We don't want to walk next to you. We cannot do this.
Were you with other people who had been from a friend standpoint, other people who had been adopted, or just other young Brazilians? Okay.
No, other kids that were adopted at the same, like from the same city or the same like area.
Gotcha. No, definitely. I can see. I mean, first of all, teenagers already are like, don't walk with us. But then you're like, oh my gosh, you look different and everybody is staring and this is weird. Yeah, no, I get that. So then let me ask you this. As you're talking, you obviously went back to Brazil at some point. When did you go back again? And did you go back without your parents?
Yeah, because I was so disappointed after this first trip. So I had to leave Brazil, like leave the idea of Brazil aside for a long while. And then I went to therapy and I was trying to figure out who I am, what I'm doing, what I should do in life, and how I should handle myself. So when I think I was 21, I decided that I wanted to try to find my mom, my biological mom. So I had a problem with that, but actually it was easy, but I had a problem because I don't speak Portuguese. So I asked the Brazilian embassy to help me to translate just like 5 notes, what I wanted to write to her. And because we didn't have Google Translate and these things at this time, maybe we did, but I didn't know it anyway. And I sent an email to the lawyer because we had his business card that made the adoption possible. And he had the same email. So I emailed him and asked if he could help me to just find my mom. And I screenshotted, or like I put the adoption papers with her name and my name there. And he answered me after like 4 days and we're like, yeah, I know where she is. I will get back to you. Just like that. And he was like, yeah, I got her new address. So here it is. Like, good luck. And then I sent her this letter with these 5 notes that I got translated, like a handwritten letter, like a real letter with some photos. And like, I think I wrote something like, I just want to get to know you. I just want a chance, you know.
Okay, so as you're joining us back from the break, you heard Anna kind of recount her story of trying to find her biological mom in Brazil. And before the break, we got to the point where the lawyer knew where she was and how to reach her. And so I guess my question is, you eventually made contact with her. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I sent her this letter and I told my mom in Sweden and she got really upset. And I couldn't really understand why she got upset. Because for me, it was like, you will always be my mom. This is just a person I really need to meet, but it's different. But it was really difficult for her to handle. So I was kind of fighting with her about it. At the same time that my mom in Brazil sent me a letter back or an email back. I don't remember. Like, it took 2 weeks from that I emailed the lawyer until I got an answer. And it was so emotionally and so weird at the same time. And she was just like, you know, throwing love at me. Like, I always loved you and you have to come and I want to see you. And it's amazing that you're back and all of these things. So eventually I went back to Brazil. I spent the Christmas there 1 year with her and my little sister. that is now 25 and I'm 36. And I went back the year after to meet my dad, my grandfather, and my uncles and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you, I mean, here's the question. And I'm share as much as you want or you don't want, but I'm sure you probably asked her why she chose to give you up for adoption.
I did.
What was her response, if you don't mind sharing? It's
a very, I don't mind saying it, but it's a very disappointing answer that I got. So I just wanted to say it for the people who are listening, that it's not, I was preparing for, I was poor. I didn't, all of these things that could be possible. But she looked at me when I asked her. No, actually, it was like this. The second time I was there, I was pregnant with my first son, and her sister's children, like my cousins, were there as well.
Yeah.
And we are 1 year between me and my cousins. So my mom said that, we couldn't keep all of you because we couldn't. We didn't have, the space or the money for that. And I was like, whoa, how do you choose if you are two sisters pregnant, with a year in between? How do you choose which child to keep? How do you even do that? And she looked at me and she put her head on the side and she was like, but you are black. So when I saw you, I knew that I wouldn't keep you. And I was like, whoa, you broke my heart. I could literally feel it. Something is breaking inside me when you are, how could you tell me this like this? Yeah. How do you, are you kidding? What is it supposed to be funny? Or what? I don't, I didn't get it. And she was like, no, but it's very racist here, So this is how it is. And I'm like, but now you are the racist, It's not here. Yeah. It's you. And how could you tell me this? And in the same, the next sentence you are saying that you love me. That doesn't work. How could I even appreciate that you love me if you are also telling me that you leave me because of my skin color? How? Yeah. So that was a bad day. That was
no. I know we're both laughing, but we're both like, that's really heavy. Oh my gosh. Well, let me ask you this, because I did not ask this question about your biological mother or your biological father. Your biological mother, what does she present as? Is she lighter skinned? Is she white? Is she, I know it's Brazil.
Yeah, but they are lighter. They are like Portuguese white,
Okay.
And my dad as well.
Really?
Yeah. But my grandfather is darker though.
The genes come through. Yes. Sorry, I'm like, it always shows up. It's just stay there. I know. I shouldn't be excited about that. But it's like, wait, why am I dark? Because there's a grandparent somewhere. It's always a grand or a great grandparent. Yeah. So both of your biological parents are fairer in complexion than you.
Yes.
But your biological grandfather was darker.
Yes, exactly.
And the only reason I ask this is because I guess in my mind, and I'm sure obviously you as the person went through this, I'm trying to process the decision making your mother made. And so let me put it this way. This is going to sound dumb. I'm so sorry, but usually we have a sense a child's going to come out dark if you look at the two parents. Yeah. But I think in your case, it seemed like they didn't know what until you were born. And because I'm trying to understand if you were going to give the child up because you knew the child was going to be dark, I think you would have already, in my mind, I'm thinking you already know the child's going to be dark because you're looking at yourself and you're looking at your partner. But it seems like
no clue. And my biological dad was married with somebody else at this point. So it was like a lot of stuff going
That's
on.
Also
there.
Extra. You said you got to meet that side of the family. What was it like meeting your biological father?
Yeah, that was a little weird because this was the second, the third trip, but the second time I was there to meet my mom. I also met my biological dad, and he was like taking time from work to spend with us and blah blah blah. And I was like, "But how many kids do you have?" And because I was curious, and I don't remember now if he said 5 or if he said 4. But because I'm not sure. And I was like, but show me a picture. And he's like, yeah, this blah, 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 blah. And I was like, but couldn't you call them? Like, couldn't you, bring them here? And he's like, no. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because I don't count you as my child. And I was like, okay, fuckface. Then why did you take time off work to spend 4 days with me here? If it doesn't even matter, And he's like, no, but it's just a fun thing. And I'm like, no, this is not just a fun thing. So you're never going to tell them about me? He's like, no. And I was like, that sucks, So yeah, when I went home, he still didn't tell them, or he was like, no, I will not. Like, I will never tell them. And I was like, but that's weird. You got divorced 3 times since, so nobody cares and everybody's adult. Couldn't you just tell them? But no, he didn't plan to.
I mean, that's a whole story, right?
I'm sorry. I'm sitting
here because we both have counseling degrees. And I'm just I feel like if a client or a patient told you this, you would know how to be a counselor in it. But when it's your own story, you're like, this is a mess. This is a mess. And so, but here's the thing. You have a sister.
Yeah.
On your mother's side.
Yes.
And so did you first meet her when she was in Brazil, or did you first meet her as she was relocating to Europe?
And no, I met her in Brazil not the first time I was there with my parents, but the first time I met my mom, I also met my little sister.
Okay.
That was amazing. Imagine I have a sister, it was awesome.
Because you'd been an only child in your mind. And I think that's important for people to hear, even with that conversation with your biological father, is that you grew up, in Sweden, and also as an only child. And so I can imagine for you, it's finding out you have siblings. There's a desire for connection, even if you didn't grow up in the same home, because you're like, we are tethered by blood and DNA and genes. And so I guess the question I have for you is that you said earlier, or maybe you said this off air, your sister presents as she's fair, she's whiter or lighter than you are.
Yeah.
Was there any conversations with your mom, and she's much younger too, but was there any conversations around, okay, well, this child, why this child, and she could have been in a different place. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about your biological mother, but.
No, but my biological mom is a person I probably not ever in my life going to fully understand her situation or her struggles or her way, because she's very Catholic, very religious. Which was interesting because the first time I was there at Christmas, they were like, we want to go to church. And I was like, in my Swedish mind, I was like, yeah, we go to church, we light a candle, we go home. Because this is how the traditional
Swedish.
Really, And we sat in that damn church for 8 hours. And I was like, and we had dinner with the priest before. And then we went to church and we sat 8 hours, and I was almost crying and are you kidding? 8 hours here? I don't understand the language. I cannot, what are we doing here? And we were thanking Jesus because he brought me back and blah, blah, blah. And in the end, I was like, hello, I paid for the flight tickets. Stop giving him credit. Stop it.
Sorry. And here's the thing. I totally go to church. That comment is really funny. That comment is so funny. I paid for the flight ticket though. Sorry, I'm dying. Inside, I'm dying. Anyway, yes. No, and I'm trying to unpack this in my brain, what it was like to be you, right? Because your mom drops this information on you, right? You have this father over here who's just living his best life. I'm going to say that for him. He's just living. He's, as we say out here, he's just on vibes, just vibing, just on vibes.
Yeah.
He
had a great time, probably.
He did, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you're probably thinking to yourself, these are the people I come from.
Yes.
Maybe Sweden wasn't as, that is not what, no. I'm curious though, your relationship with your sister, what has that looked like? I mean, obviously you met her when you went back and had these experiences, but.
Yeah, it's been a little tricky because she's not my only sister on my mom's side. My mom had another daughter that died when she was 15, I think. I'm not, because I don't speak Portuguese, so I don't really understand the details in everything. So when my sister and I was like emailing or like sending letters to each other, not always, but from time to time. And I was trying, when I got a little older, like when I was 24 or 25 or something, I was trying to send her money, not every month, but like send her some money. So that she could take her driver license, so that she could go to school, so that she can learn English, so that she will have, some easier life than she would have had just growing up with my mom, a single mom, not really educated, not really the easiest situation. And at some point, my sister started to ask me, like, can I come? Like, it's not possible to grow here. It's not possible to handle this. And I ignored it for many years. I feel a little bad about that, but I just couldn't figure out how to have a relationship with her because it was too painful. And it was too painful for me that my mom kept her and she didn't keep me. So I had to deal with that, like with myself. I had to figure that out, how to feel more acceptance and how to find myself in the middle of this, mess that was created, which brought me to bringing my sister to Europe. And 4 months ago now.
It's interesting hearing kind of the threads of your story because it kind of makes sense to me now, understanding you being, and we've talked about this online, being a counselor or a therapist, because I can tell there's an empathy, and I can tell that you think very much about the emotional side and the feeling part of being a human, that I can see why you are in the work that you do, because we've talked about this, and I was like, it's very fascinating with your training, right? So there's dance therapy, and then, in the US we would say almost like, it would fall under like intimacy counseling, right? So, and especially couples, and partners that are dealing with sexual related issues. And I imagine in the work that you do, a lot of it is knowing who you are, knowing where you are emotionally, spiritually, and being grounded. Yeah. And so I'm going to ask you a question, and I wonder if you can make the jump or the bridge. Do you think, or do you feel that the experiences you had kind of led you into this world of, I want to help people, especially with the struggles they're having emotionally and spiritually? Like, do you think there's a connection there?
Yeah, because when I went to therapy, trying to figure out this rootlessness, this, pain of being being abandoned that kind of from a part of my life framed my whole life story. It became like a life rule that I couldn't get rid of because it was actually true. And it was very, I was a very hard client because my therapist at the time, he was like, but you can change it. You don't have to live according to this rule. And I was like, but I'm not, but it's still true. How to handle it when it's actually true. What do I do with this pain? And no matter what people or therapists or professionals were telling me that, you need time to heal and blah, blah, blah. But for me, I got to a point where I realized that I cannot heal properly without my family or without my community or without my roots or without my, the belonging in my cells or in my blood. It's not possible to do it. It's just, you get pieces of it, but I cannot. So then I had to be a therapist on my own. To learn more about it. And I did study CBT, became a counselor, or this is the if we translate it, this is counseling in your context. Mm-hmm. And then I read dance and movement therapy, like you said, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. And now I'm doing a master in sexology. I'm studying sexological bodywork, and I'm a certified sex coach.
And so I'm going to say for the non-therapist counselors around us, I know, I'm not going to ask you to explain CBT. I know what CBT is. Y'all can look it up. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. Not to get all counseling on you. I think some people be like, what are they talking about? I know what it is. She knows what it is. Y'all can Google it. But more importantly, so what is the field of, because I think it's interesting. So what is sexology looking at?
Wow, everything. It's amazing because we can look at sexual and reproductive health and how this is accessible or not accessible for specific groups. It's connecting with human rights, the function right, which is also something that always is under pressure for some groups or individuals, which is also different in the different societies or different countries. And we have been talking about migrants, for example, and how, prostitutions or trafficking is a thing. But mainly it's more the rules, the migration laws that are creating these borders or barriers that makes people, not have access to good health care, to the possibility to earn money. And it's all connecting. Mm-hmm. But it's also about looking into an individual specific situation or specific problem, or to talk about sexual trauma, or to, figure out how you can make sex or intimacy or your sexual connection into something that is a healing space for you.
Mm-hmm. So with your work, are you, obviously you guys and your family right now, you're mobile, right? So are you working with clients across different borders? Are you working with folks mainly in Sweden? Like how are you able to connect and identify your clientele at this point?
I do work online just because I want to keep on traveling and we want to keep on world schooling. And it's actually very possible to do almost everything online that you can do in an ordinary therapy room, because it's not only about what we are saying, but it's about how we are saying it. It's about the body language, and it's about connecting the dance and movement therapy with the techniques of CBT to make the space that we are in as, alive as possible. And actually, people get more scared when I say dance and movement therapy than when I say sexology. Just to rephrase it, this is what scares people.
Why do you think that? Or why is that?
Because there's a lot of, shame or feelings that you have to perform when you are slipping out the word dance in different contexts. And sex is still, kind of secret. You don't have to feel pressure about it officially because, nobody will ask you to have sex here. So it's okay. But maybe somebody will actually ask you to dance. Then.
It's really funny. It's actually really funny. And and what's really cool is that you are working on something that you are passionate and you are getting your training and whatnot. And you're still able to have this mobile life. Yeah. Because one of the things I think, especially when I talk to people who are thinking about being expats or moving or whatever, it's career, right? Because there are ways that we make money and they have to think about, how do I take my career to this different country or these different countries? And so what I find fascinating is that you're showing kind of a different way. Like you're coming from a different field where I don't always have people who can do that. And I know and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I know this might be different for you. I know one of the challenges for the Americans is we're licensed by state. So it's like you can practice in, like I am in North Carolina. I can practice in North Carolina, but I'm not licensed by Georgia or New York or California or Illinois, right?
Yeah.
With your work, do you have those limitations, or are you able to, is it you have been trained and certified in Sweden? Can you take those qualifications and, you're spending time in Spain, but still see clients wherever?
It's depending on how I do it, because I am licensed in Sweden as a counselor. And I'm certified as a sex coach in WASC, like the World Associations of Sex Coaches.
There's an association of sex coaches. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I learned on this podcast. Awesome.
A lot about different things.
Right. Love it. Go ahead.
But because I have my own company, I have the clients in my company that is Swedish, where I have my license. So
makes sense.
Until I actually move like outside of Europe, I don't think I actually have a problem. If it's like real deep, heavy trauma things, then I need to have them, booked in the proper sessions as it should, using my license, of course, with these, manuals and knowledge. But if it's coaching, I don't think I need to actually care that much about different licenses or legalization in that sense, unless I actually move to the States or I get, a work there or something. Then I need to think about it again. But right now, I don't think I'm locked or stuck in that.
And you're right, particularly because you have that coaching bent. And I will say yes, I will say at least for Americans, that's how some of the counselors get around it, is that they also get coaching certifications. And then there are some things they can do as a coach, obviously, that does not matter whether they are licensed in a state or whatever. So that is fascinating. And so you guys are currently in Spain. You were in Portugal. Do you see yourselves, and you mentioned taking time to world school your children. Do you see yourselves continuing to be on the road or doing this movement for a while? Or are you, I'm asking these questions, nobody knows the future. Or do you have a set time where you guys are thinking, we're going to go back to Sweden?
And no, because the more we are out, the less we want to go back, actually. So we will go back for the summer, meet family and friends and all of this, of course. But I want to go to the Caribbean. Because I haven't been there. So I want to go and just, discover it and be there and enjoy the heat. Because it's a little cold for me in Spain. It's like 22 degrees. It's still cold.
I was going to say, is your partner Swedish?
No, he's from Austria. He's also a digital nomad. So he is traveling around right now. He is in the Maldives. Yeah.
Why are you not there? I'm not to be in your business, but why are you and children not also in the Maldives?
Yeah, good question. Because it's not his children. My kid's dad lives in Sweden still, but my partner, since like 6 months back, he is keep on traveling like he wants. And I'm
that's great. I'm still like, why are we not in the Maldives? I don't care whose children they are. Like, why are we not in the Maldives?
Yeah,
sorry.
This is a good question because I also have a dog, and she don't want to be on a boat diving for 12 days.
There's the real issue. It's the dog. It's not even anybody else.
No, it's her. She is cute, but she is.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I just heard the Maldives and was like, why are we all here? Why are we not?
Yeah, but it's okay. I'm going with my partner to St. Martin's in like 3 weeks. So I'm like,
okay, you'll be fine.
Breathe.
Like you are not struggling. You are okay.
No, I'm not in pain. It's all right.
You've just listened to an episode of The Global Chatter, which is hosted by me, Amanda Bates. It is edited by Stephanie Ficcio. Don't forget to subscribe to The Global Chatter on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow us on Instagram at The Global Chatter, or stop by Twitter and find us at Global Chat Pod. If you have a question, want to subscribe to the newsletter, or are interested in sponsoring, visit theglobalchatter.com.